Once upon a time, long, long ago, back in the golden age of radio, you could be almost certain that just by twiddling a dial, you could hear a marvelous sound. Those days are gone. I rather miss them, don't you? Well, now there's resonance radio. Yes, resonance radio. It's not so very, very, very bad.
And now on Resonance 104.4 FM, it's time for the Harmon E Phraisyar Show.
The dream is always the same.
I want to tell you a story. During the Iraqi War, a group of soldiers had been on a long and tedious patrol. They arrived in a tiny town called Basra. The next day being the anniversary of President Bush's birthday, all the men went to Christian fundamentalist church to pray and give thanks for oil. After the padre had delivered a few jingoistic speeches in a monotone voice, the text was taken up. The soldiers who had Texan prayer books took them out and began to holler and praise Bush. Some of them started rolling around on the floor, kicking their legs in the air. Such was the extent of their rapture. One soldier, a diminutive young buck private, produced a deck of cards, and he spread them out in front of him, in much the same way as Mrs. Blair spreads utterly butterly all over Tony's toast first thing in the morning, while little Ewan cringes in the corner throwing up, the effects of the previous night's heavy drinking. Now, the sergeant in charge, who was a big, ferocious and powerfully built fellow, saw the cards and yelled at the soldier, "Put away those cards, you horrible little man, and follow me outside." This being the British Army, once the sergeant got the little private outside, he started kicking his head in.
Hello! My name is Harmon E Phraisyar. This is my show! You know what? You guessed it! We've got a vacuum-packed, drink-wrapped half-hour coming right at ya! And this week's prog is lovingly entitled Deck of Crudds. So, for all you card-spangling maniacs out there, eyes down for a hot flush.
The little soldier lay there semi-conscious in the sand, bleeding from top to bottom, while the vicious sergeant continued to lick 9 shades out of him. Boots, fists, nasty karate chops. That big sergeant certainly knew how to damage human beings big time. Eventually, the sergeant got tired of exerting himself in the 50-degree Iraqi heat, and bending over the little private, he whispered in his ear, "Now I'm going to show you how we commit suicide in the British Army. First, you shoot yourself in the head. Then you think, hang on, even though I'm dead, I'd better make sure I'm really dead. So you shoot yourself again. But after a while, you get to thinking, oh, hang on, I may be stone dead, but I've still got a few bullets left. I may as well finish them off. So you put the weapon on automatic, jam it into the roof of your mouth, and pull the trigger." The vicious sergeant had just placed the little private's weapon into the private's mouth and was about to blow him away when the 3 Fates, Harpo, Zeppo and Chico, looking down from Mount Patton, decided to intervene. It was at this point that the commanding officer happened to blunder along. "Why, Sergeant," he said in his staccato Sandhurst drawl, "it's mighty fine of you to take time out on President Bush's birthday to bring the men up to speed on weapons drill. Carry on." "This man isn't on weapons drill, sir," barked the big sergeant. "He's on a charge. I caught him playing cards in fundamentalist church." "Well, I can't deal with him right now, Sergeant," answered the commanding officer. "It's time for my tiffin. Bring him back to me for sentencing after the next track." After the service, the soldier was put under close arrest and brought before the commanding officer. The CO said, "Sergeant, why have you brought this man here?" "Have you forgotten already, sir?" answered the sergeant. "This is the blighter I caught playing cards in fundamentalist church." The officer looked at the soldier and said, "I hope you've got a good explanation. If you haven't, you'll be in a lot of trouble. Now, what have you got to say for yourself?" But just as the soldier opened his mouth to speak, the sergeant smashed him right across the chops with the butt of his machine gun. "You'll speak until spoken to, you horrible little man." "Steady on, Sergeant," cooed the CO. "This is the British Army. We always give our men a chance to speak before we shoot them." And the soldier spat out the remains of his teeth and said, "Sir, I want to tell you a story. I've been on the march for 39 days. I've had Iraqi snipers trying to shoot holes in me tin hat. I found booby traps in me Esquire magazine. And to top it all, I've had no Bible and prayer book issued me by a commissary." The CO blew his stack. "Sergeant, do you mean to tell me that one of my men wasn't issued with his Bible and prayer book?" The poor sergeant turned bright red, like a beetroot after intensive colonic irrigation. "Just a minute," interrupted the little soldier. "Do you want to hear this story or not?" So I dug deep into me Calvin Kleins and I found this deck of cards. You see, sir, when I look at the ace of spades, I see the mother of all fathers, Saddam Hussein al-Tikriti. A simple man, blunt, ruthless even, but he did a lot of good arms business with the West in the 1980s. And when I see the deuce, I think of Saddam's two sons, Uday and Qusay. The sergeant interrupted at this point, and addressing the CO growled, "Beg pardon, sir, but I thought Uday and Qusay were the ace of hearts and the ace of clubs, respectively." The soldier, sensing he had nothing to lose, said, "Look, Sarge, if you keep butting in, we'll never get to the end of this bullshit story." soldier continued. When I see the tray, I think of Abdul Majid Afaisal, Bath Party Chairman for Salahuddin. The floor reminds me of Mohammed Al-Razak, Samir Al-Najim, Human Abd Al-Ghaffar, and Yahya Al-Ubaidai, a Baathist quartet of unlikely lackeys. The five brings to mind Wabban Ibrahim Hassan, presidential advisor and half-brother to Saddam. We've already captured him in a routine sweep operation. When I look at the six, I remember the 6 Days War and how the Americans hurried their latest weapons off to Israel so they could whop Egypt's arse. The 7 reminds me of how on the 7th day, Bush and Blair relaxed in the Camp David sauna while we slogged up to Basra with our Challengers and pack. But they did for me mates with their plan of attack. see the 8, I think of Tariq Aziz, the Deputy Prime Minister and Revolution Command Council member who gave himself up without a fight like a pussy. The 9 suggests Rukan Razuki Al-Ghafir Suleiman Al-Majid, head of Tribal Affairs Office. And then there's that old mate of his, Jamal Mustafa Abdullah. He's the deputy head of the Tribal Affairs Office. Mind you, whenever I see that 9, another pair of weasels comes to mind. That crony Mizban Karir Hadi and the glove puppet Vice President Taha Moha al-Din Maruf. The 10 brings to mind Saddam's 10 golden palaces, the wonder of the age, until Sinpak and Uncle used combined intelligence to drop a few hundred cruise missiles on them. Still, if you like looking at rubble, I'd recommend a visit, sir. The CO cleared his throat of a bogey and said, I hope I don't have to remind you, Private, that the DEN also stands for Hamid Raja Shallah, the Iraqi Air Force commander. The sergeant, fed up of not brutalizing anyone for 10 minutes, suddenly began striking the little soldier on the bridge of his nose with a bazooka. Save some for me, said the CO, who rushed over and started cracking the private's parts with a captured Kalashnikov. Look, squealed the little soldier. How's about if I give you both a military blowjob? Will you drop the charges and set me free? You horrible little man, snarled the Sarge. That's in very bad taste. How's about a hand job from your mother's own hands? Replied the soldier. You filthy beast, cursed the sergeant. How dare you bring your mother into this? Yes, said the CO. That's jolly bad form. This isn't the Navy, you know. But the little soldier pulled a box from under his tunic. He opened it, and inside were his mother's own hands, frozen on ice. Dorville and Dean, yelled the sergeant. I don't believe it, sir, the dirty bugger's got his own dear mum's hands in that icebox. Explain yourself, Private, demanded the CO. Well, you see, sir, it's like this. Me old mum knew she was dying from Ebola virus, and knowing me fondness to do with handstands and the prevalence of Iraqi landmines out here, she donated me her hands. Take him outside and shoot him, said the CO.
Drums keep pounding a rhythm
a minute, begged the little private. Don't you want to hear about the rest of my deck of cards? Not particularly, said the sergeant, who began to violently punch the soldier in the ribs. If this was the USA, said the CO, your feet wouldn't touch the ground till you were banged up in Camp X-Ray Guantanamo Bay, caged like a headless animal awaiting your fate, on the end of a cheap length of rope. But this is the British Army, so we'll give you one more chance to redeem yourself before we shoot you. Well, you see, sir, it's like this. When I see the king, I think again of that mother of all dictators, Saddam Hussein al-Tikriti. Although he was barely literate, he rose to lead an oil-rich state into utter oblivion, a fine tradition being continued to this day by the new Iraqi dictator, the grandmother of all dictators, George Bush. And when I see the Queen, I'm reminded of Huda Salih Mahdi Amash, Chemical Sally, although in some of the more sensational pack of cards she turns up as the 5 of hearts. Then there's the Jack, or Knave. For some reason, it always brings the Home Secretary to mind. When he heard this, the Sarge who'd voted for Margaret Thatcher every election, even though she'd been dead for over 30 years, took out a nasty-looking penknife and cut off one of the soldier's ears. The soldier stared down at his ear, lying on the dirty sand, and said, "That reminds me, there's one more card in my pack. The Joker." "So who's the Joker, Private?" asked the CO. "Jack Nicholson." "Gentlemen, let's broaden our minds."
It's a plane with its transponder turned off, and it's heading straight for Washington, D.C. It's flying low at 500 miles an hour. It's a plane with its transponder turned off, and it's heading straight for Washington, D.C. It's flying low at 500 miles an hour. It's a plane with its transponder turned off, and it's heading straight for Washington, D.C. It's flying low at 500 miles an hour. It's a plane with its transponder turned off, and it's heading straight for Washington, D.C. It's flying low at 500 miles an hour. It's a plane with its transponder turned off, and it's heading straight for Washington, D.C. It's flying low. turned off, and it's heading straight for Washington, D.C. It's flying low at 500 miles an hour. It's a plane with its transponder turned off, and it's heading straight for Washington, D.C. It's flying low at 500 miles an hour. It's a plane with its transponder turned off, and it's heading straight for Washington, D.C. It's flying low at 500 miles an hour. It's a plane with its transponder turned off, and it's heading straight for Washington, D.C. It's flying low at 500 miles an hour. It's a plane with its transponder turned off, and it's heading straight for Washington, D.C. It's flying low at 500 miles an hour.
The commanding officer looked the little soldier right in the eyes and said, "I put it to you that what you have concocted is nothing more than a fabrication, a tissue of lies, a matrix of untruths, a madman's crude collage, a series of non-precipitated realities, an untopical bowl of steaming slops fit only for indie media." The sergeant was applying the humanitarian touch that he had learnt serving as a UN peacekeeper in Liberia. He had the little private's bollocks laid out over a blacksmith's anvil and was beating them flat with a red-hot hammer. "We want the truth, Private," shouted the Sarge. "You can't handle the truth," replied the CO. "But that's my line," yelled the soldier. And do you know what? He was right. It's all down here in the script, page 37, line 206. Let me read it to you. And the private said through gritted gums, "You can't handle the truth." And then he continued, "If you count all the spots in my deck of cards, they add up to 365. That's the number of artificial limbs that have had to be fitted to Iraqi children blown up in the Allied bombings. There are 52 cards in the pack, and that's precisely the number of barrels of oil being produced per day under the Bush regime. The 4 suits signify 4 years, the current life expectancy of your average Iraqi child. The 12 picture cards represent the number of days in the year when the electricity actually works. So you see, sir, my deck of cards has served me as a fundamentalist Bible, a prayer book, and an easy way to win dollars off the gullible Yanks when we play poker." And the charge against the little soldier was dismissed. And then they shot him.
Hello. My name is Harmon E Phraisyar. That's my show. Extra sensory thanks to my guests this week, the magnificent Lepke Bee and the Cretaceous Share. And remember, be nice to your local politicians, or it may be your face that ends up on the deck of cards.